Modern Queen Tales presents The Heart of the Matter. The darkness pressed against my eyes with the weight of a lead apron. A persistent, rhythmic beeping drilled into my skull, anchoring my consciousness to a sterile, chilling reality. A sharp, chemical stench of iodine, bleached cotton, and metallic ozone flooded my nostrils. I lay flat on my back on a hard, narrow steel table. Cold air blasted from a ceiling vent directly onto my bare shoulders, raising sharp pricks of goosebumps across my flesh. A voice broke the absolute stillness of the room. William's voice. Time of death, 1432. The words hung in the chilled air, crisp and authoritative. William possessed the practiced, solemn baritone of a chief of cardiothoracic surgery. He used that exact cadence to command operating rooms, soothe anxious families, and charm hospital board members. Today, he used it to declare my life over. Panic ignited in my chest. A sudden flare of heat spiked against the freezing environment. I commanded my eyes to open. The muscles refused to obey. I screamed his name in my mind, demanding an explanation, a reversal, a sign that this was a horrific nightmare. My jaw remained locked, heavy and immovable as a slab of granite. The terrifying truth solidified in my consciousness. I lay entirely paralyzed. I remained trapped inside a body presenting every outward appearance of a corpse. My mind screamed in hyper-vigilant terror. Heavy, purposeful footsteps approached the head of the table. A plastic clipboard scraped against a metal stand. Dr. Royce, the protocol for brain death certification requires a secondary confirmation by an independent neurologist, a second voice stated. A woman, young, hesitant, carrying the distinct tremor of a junior staff member. Her scrubs rustled as she shifted her weight on the tiled floor. The standard procedure dictates a waiting period. Nurse Hennessy, William interrupted. His tone carried a razor edge of impatience wrapped in professional condescension. My wife suffered a catastrophic subarachnoid hemorrhage. The anoxic brain injury is complete and irreversible. The primary scans confirmed total cessation of neurological function. We are bypassing the redundant waiting period. The lie echoed off the sterile tile walls. The memory of my collapse crashed back into my awareness, a vivid, high-definition replay of the previous evening. We stood in the center of our custom-designed kitchen. The marble countertops reflected the warm amber glow of the pendant lights. William poured a glass of 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon. He handed me the heavy crystal goblet. I drank the wine. A bitter, chalky residue coated my tongue. A harsh metallic tang followed the initial sweetness. 3 minutes later, the kitchen tilted on its axis. My knees buckled, striking the hardwood floor with a bone-jarring thud. The last image seared into my brain before the darkness consumed me featured William. He stood perfectly still by the kitchen island, watching my body hit the floor with cold, clinical detachment. He drugged me. He administered a potent, long-lasting paralytic, masked by a profound sedative, orchestrating the perfect, flawless illusion of brain death. She is a registered organ donor, William continued. The sound of a pen scratching rapidly across paper filled the silence. Her file is updated in the central system. The recipient for her heart is prepped and waiting in OR4. The window for viable tissue transfer is exceptionally narrow. We face a strict timeline. Prepare the sternal saw. My mind recoiled in absolute horror. Falsified records. I explicitly removed my name from the organ registry 3 years ago. I read a harrowing investigative article about medical mistakes and immediately revoked my consent. William knew my stance. He stood in my home office when I tore up the physical donor card. He filed the updated legal directive with our estate lawyer himself. He altered my medical files. The clatter of surgical steel dropping onto a metal Mayo stand echoed through the room. The scrub tech laid out the heavy instruments for the harvest. Forceps clinked against retractors. The heavy, unmistakable thud of the sternal saw hitting the tray vibrated through the metal table beneath me. They prepared to cut my chest open. They planned to carve my beating heart from my body while I lay wide awake, a silent, helpless prisoner within my own flesh. My marriage to William Royce dissolved into a toxic war zone long before this terrifying moment. We met during his 3rd year of surgical residency. I worked as a senior hospital administrator, captivated by his brilliance, his steady hands, and his relentless, burning ambition. I mistook his calculated, predatory intensity for romantic passion. Over 5 years, the polished facade crumbled into dust. William viewed people as biological mechanisms and convenient status symbols. My career advanced rapidly. My private medical consultancy firm secured a multi-million-dollar government contract. William's pride fractured under the weight of my success. His ambition curdled into a dark, suffocating, professional jealousy. He masked his deep-seated resentment with wild financial extravagance. William bought vintage European sports cars. He ordered bespoke Italian suits by the dozen. He purchased a sprawling, high-maintenance estate in the Hamptons. He hid the crushing reality of his financial recklessness behind a web of offshore accounts and complex shell companies. I uncovered the complete, devastating truth 6 months ago. The debts ran into the tens of millions. He owed money to violent syndicates who did not send standard collection letters. They sent brutal enforcers to our gated driveway. The final, irreparable fracture occurred when I filed for divorce. I ordered a ruthless forensic audit of our shared assets. I backed William into a corner with 0 escape routes. I threatened his pristine medical reputation, his opulent lifestyle, and his physical freedom. I held the evidence to put him in federal prison for fraud. William found a twisted, horrifying, and highly lucrative solution to his problems locked within my own biology. I possessed Rh null blood. The global medical community called the mutation golden blood. My blood lacked all antigens in the Rh system. The genetic anomaly made my blood the rarest type on the entire planet. I served as a universal donor for anyone with rare Rh blood types, but finding a match for my own medical needs proved nearly impossible. William developed a dangerous obsession with my medical file during our 1st year of marriage. He cataloged my vitals. He studied my lab results. He tracked my genetic markers with a feverish intensity bordering on madness. "The recipient in OR4, Nurse Hennessy murmured. Her voice sounded closer now. I felt the slight displacement of air as she leaned over my immobilized body. The surgical chart lists him as John Doe, private pay, no insurance routing number, no national registry identification code. The patient is an international diplomat requiring absolute discretion. William snapped, shutting down her inquiry. His private security detail handles the logistics. Our sole job is the cardiac extraction. Swab the surgical site. A thick, freezing liquid slapped against my bare chest. The nurse scrubbed the iodine solution in wide, heavy concentric circles from my collarbone down to my upper abdomen. The physical sensation felt vivid, sharp, and undeniable. The rough texture of the sponge scraped against my skin. The stinging chill of the antiseptic seeped into my pores. The underground market. The realization hit my consciousness with the brute force of a physical blow. William bypassed the National Organ Registry entirely. He sold my heart on the black market to cover his massive syndicate debts. A wealthy, desperate buyer, with a matching rare blood type, needed an immediate transplant. William provided the perfect, untraceable donor. He served up his own wife, legally pronounced dead by his own absolute, unquestionable authority. Prep the drapes, William ordered. Heavy, sterile blue sheets descended over my body. The fabric blocked out the biting chill of the operating room vent. The draping process left only a distinct rectangular square of exposed iodine-stained skin directly over my sternum. I lay entombed beneath the heavy fabric, prepped for the slaughter. I focused every ounce of my willpower on a single, desperate objective: move. I channeled every spark of electrical energy in my nervous system toward my extremities. Move a finger, twitch an eyelid, flare a nostril, shift a toe. The connection between my conscious brain and my skeletal muscles felt entirely severed. An impenetrable wall of chemical static replaced my neural pathways. I pictured my right index finger. I visualized the tendons contracting. I imagined the joint bending toward the palm. The muscles remained slack. The paralytic held my body in an unbreakable iron grip. A sudden, terrifying pressure compressed the mattress near my right ear. William leaned directly over the operating table. His face hovered inches from mine. I smelled the crisp, expensive scent of cedar, bergamot, and sterile latex, his signature combination. "You always thought you possessed a superior intellect, Peyton," William whispered. He pitched his voice low, ensuring the surgical staff across the room could not hear a single syllable. The venomous, triumphant words scraped directly against my eardrum. "You thought you held the power to freeze my accounts. You thought you held the evidence to ruin my life. But you are going to save my life today. $2 million, wired directly to a secure vault in Geneva the precise moment your rare heart begins beating in our VIP's chest. You are finally making a meaningful, substantial contribution to this marriage." A single tear formed beneath my right eyelid. The moisture represented a purely physiological response to the agonizing, terrifying effort of trying to force my paralyzed body to move. The tear pooled against my lower lash line, trapped by the heavy, unresponsive muscle of my eyelid. "Scalpel," William demanded. The sharp slap of heavy metal against tight latex filled the silence. He held the blade directly above my chest. The absolute edges of my chemical paralysis began to fray. The profound, suffocating numbness gripping my extremities developed tiny, agonizing pinpricks of sensation. The massive dose of anesthesia he administered at the house hours ago approached the end of its half-life. The complex drug cocktail began to fail. A fiery, blinding agony of returning nerve function swept up my arms and legs. My mind screamed at the burning sensation. My muscles remained locked, refusing to jerk away from the pain. William traced a slow, deliberate line down the exact center of my chest with the blunt, heavy end of the scalpel handle. He marked the precise incision site along my sternum, starting the primary midline incision. "Doctor, wait." Nurse Hennessy's voice sliced through the heavy tension of the operating room. The junior tremor vanished. The tone rang out, sharp, loud, and deeply alarmed. "I gave you a direct, actionable order, nurse," William growled. The sharp edge of the scalpel hovered millimeters above my stained skin. "Look at the BIS monitor," she insisted. Her rubber-soled footsteps squeaked against the tile as she rushed toward the head of the surgical table. "The bispectral index is spiking rapidly." She just registered a 75. A 75 indicates full conscious awareness. She is not brain dead. She is awake. "The monitoring equipment is malfunctioning," William countered smoothly. A microscopic tremor of raw panic entered his carefully controlled voice. "Disconnect the frontal lead. The machine is delivering a false positive reading due to the extreme cold of the environment." "I will not disconnect the lead," Nurse Hennessy shouted. Look at the primary cardiac monitor. Her heart rate just spiked to 140 beats per minute. A brain-dead patient lacking neurological function does not mount a massive tachycardic stress response to basic surgical prep. I am the chief attending surgeon, William roared. He abandoned the calm, authoritative facade completely. I declared this patient deceased. Step away from the surgical table immediately. No, she fired back, planting her feet firmly beside my head. I am calling a code blue. I am paging the chief of staff and hospital security. In that chaotic, terrifying, ear-splitting second, the chemical blockade in my nervous system suffered a microscopic, miraculous breach. The single tear pooling beneath my right eyelid pushed past the weakened barrier of the muscle. The hot, wet streak slipped down my cheek, cutting a clear track through the dried yellow iodine. Simultaneously, I funneled every remaining fragment of my returning strength into my right hand. The index finger twitched. The tiny movement propelled the digit downward. The fingernail tapped violently against the cold metal rim of the operating table. A sharp, audible clink cut through the shouting. Nurse Hennessy gasped, sucking in a massive breath of air. She moved! Her right finger just moved! She is crying! Oh my God, Dr. Royce, the patient is awake! It represents a basic spinal reflex, William lied. His voice sounded frantic, unhinged, and desperate. He lunged forward over my body. Give me the sternal saw! Hand it to me now. I will perform the extraction myself. Security! Nurse Hennessy screamed at the absolute top of her lungs. She bolted for the heavy operating room door. She slammed her open palm against the red emergency wall button. A piercing, cyclical alarm flooded the entire surgical suite. The blaring siren drowned out the rapid, frantic, rhythmic beeping of my heart monitor. Security to OR 2. Active assault in progress. Surgeon attacking a live patient. The sterile, controlled tranquility of the operating room shattered into absolute, violent chaos. The scrub tech backed rapidly away from the table. Her hip struck the metal tray. Heavy retractors, bone saws, and scalpels crashed to the tiled floor in a deafening cacophony of ringing steel. William cursed violently, spewing vicious profanities. The heavy thud of his surgical boots echoed as he backed hastily away from the surgical table. He ripped his sterile blue gown off, throwing the fabric to the floor in a crumpled heap. You stupid, incompetent, meddling girl, he snarled, pointing a shaking finger at the nurse. You ruined everything! The heavy double doors of the OR crashed open, hitting the magnetic wall stops with a massive bang. Two large, broad-shouldered hospital security guards charged into the room. Dr. George Larrabee, the hospital's chief of medical ethics, followed closely behind them, his face pale and tight. Restrain Dr. Royce immediately, Larrabee barked. His eyes swept the chaotic scene. His gaze locked onto my exposed, iodine-stained chest and the clear, wet tear tracks marking my face. Get the crash cart in here now! Administer the reversal agent for rocuronium immediately. William bolted for the secondary exit leading to the adjoining scrub room. He slammed his shoulder hard into the heavy metal door. A third security guard stood firmly on the other side. The guard shoved the door inward, driving William back into the center of the OR. The two guards tackled my husband to the hard floor. A violent, brutal, physical struggle ensued. William grunted loudly, cursing and swinging his fists. Knuckles connected with flesh. A guard drove a knee into William's spine. The sharp, metallic snap of heavy steel handcuffs locking around his wrists ended the fight. A new, frantic flurry of hands descended upon my body. A nurse wiped the stinging iodine from my chest with a warm, damp towel. Another staff member pushed a large syringe of Sugamadex directly into my central IV line. The powerful reversal agent flooded my veins, hunting down the paralytic molecules. The rapid transition from chemical paralysis to full physical mobility felt like stepping out of a freezing river directly into a blast furnace. The agonizing pins and needles erupted into a violent, uncontrollable, full-body shudder. My lungs expanded rapidly, pulling in massive quantities of air. I drew my first voluntary breath in 12 hours. The ragged, desperate gasp tore at my dry throat. My eyelids fluttered violently and snapped completely open. The blinding, brilliant glare of the overhead surgical lights seared my corneas. I squinted against the pain, turning my heavy head slowly to the side. William lay pinned to the floor tiles by the weight of 2 massive guards. His perfect, expensive haircut stuck to his forehead in sweaty clumps. His bespoke designer scrubs featured a massive tear down the shoulder. He looked directly up at me, his eyes stretched wide with the horrific realization of his total, inescapable destruction. The calculating medical genius vanished. The arrogant, untouchable surgeon disappeared. A pathetic, desperate, trapped criminal lay groveling on the floor in his place. I looked down at the man who tried to slaughter me for a payout. My vocal cords felt raw, burning, and raspy from the rigid intubation tube they prepped but never inserted. I forced the words up my throat. I demanded the ultimate satisfaction of ensuring my voice delivered the final blow. You missed the window, William. The local police arrived 5 minutes later. 4 uniformed officers dragged him out of the operating room in heavy steel handcuffs. The lead officer read William his Miranda rights loudly in front of the entire, stunned surgical staff crowding the hallway. The resulting fallout decimated the hospital's executive board. The massive federal investigation exposed a deep, complex labyrinth of administrative corruption. The FBI raided William's luxurious private office suite the following morning. Federal agents unearthed a hidden safe containing encrypted hard drives. The drives detailed the entire black market organ syndicate, complete with buyer names and offshore routing numbers. Forensic accountants traced the $2 million wire transfer from a numbered Swiss bank account directly to the anonymous VIP waiting in OR4. The mysterious buyer proved to be an exiled Eastern European oligarch actively wanted by Interpol for severe war crimes. A heavily armed FBI tactical team apprehended the oligarch and his private security detail on the hospital's private rooftop helipad as they attempted to board a flight out of the country. William Royce faced a massive federal indictment. The grand jury charged him with first-degree attempted murder, gross medical malpractice, wire fraud, and international trafficking in human organs. The subsequent trial became a massive, inescapable global media spectacle. The lead prosecutor played the crisp, clear audio recordings of the chaotic operating room to the packed courtroom. The hospital's automated security systems, triggered by Nurse Hennessy hitting the alarm, captured every whispered threat and frantic lie. The jury heard William's desperate, arrogant voice. They viewed the massive mountain of documentary evidence detailing his syndicate debts and his cold, calculated plot to slaughter his wife for a massive financial payout. The federal judge handed down a maximum merciless sentence. William received life in a maximum security federal penitentiary without the possibility of parole. Nurse Cora Hennessy became a national hero. The hospital board rapidly promoted her to head of surgical nursing to save their public image. I established a massive, permanent medical ethics scholarship in her name at her alma mater. I fully funded the $1 million endowment through the aggressive liquidation of William's remaining legal assets and the forced sale of the Hamptons estate. Reclaiming my life proved significantly harder than retaining it on the operating table. The severe psychological trauma of the freezing hospital room lingered in my mind. For 10 months, I slept, with all the lights blazing in my new apartment. The low hum of a refrigerator or the sharp beep of a microwave triggered intense, paralyzing flashbacks. I spent hundreds of hours in intensive trauma therapy. I systematically dismantled the psychological horror of existing as a fully conscious prisoner trapped inside a supposedly dead body. I forced myself to learn how to trust medical professionals again. I rebuilt my foundational perception of personal safety from the ground up. I signed away my own death certificate in a polished mahogany conference room at my lawyer's office. The surreal legal procedure required me to formally reverse my own fatal declaration. The heavy black ink on the thick legal paper felt monumental. The document served as a permanent, undeniable record of the exact day my life was stolen and subsequently dragged back from the absolute precipice of darkness. The human heart exists as a fiercely resilient muscle. It pumps blood tirelessly. It sustains life through sheer mechanical force. It possesses a physical strength that defies simple comprehension. Yet, the heart remains terrifyingly, fatally vulnerable. Disease attacks it, injury damages it. Most horrifyingly, the heart falls victim to the cold, calculated malice of the individuals we invite into our lives and allow close enough to hold our survival in their hands. I survived the ultimate, devastating betrayal. I kept my heart beating inside my own chest. Every steady, rhythmic thump against my ribs serves as a constant, echoing reminder. I stand here alive, victorious, and breathing, while the man who tried to carve the life from my body rots in a concrete cage until his own treacherous heart finally stops beating. The end.
If you enjoyed this quick escape, hit the subscribe button for new stories twice a week. Until then, I'll see you at the next flip of the pages.